Hi, I'm Michael Quinn with Form Kitchens, and welcome to Trading Ideas. This is a video podcast series where we talk to interesting, innovative, and creative thinkers in the design and build environment. Thanks for tuning in to Trading Ideas. Today we are talking with Kat and Kay from K-Works. They are an architecture and design studio with offices in London and Denver. I'm really excited about this conversation today. They've got a pretty wild story, and they also have a really excellent point of view on sort of their own version of collaboration and how that's driven their business forward. But really excited to have this conversation today. Kat and Kay, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to just start with hearing the story about how K-Works came to be.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having us, Michael. We actually met when we were both in grad school, which is funny because we both have a very different point of view of what happened when we met. Kat, do you want to
Yeah,
tell what happened?
I like to tell my side of the story because I think it's the right one. If you ask other people, if you ask Katie, hers is the right one. So I was doing my MArch 2 at Syracuse, and one day I received a call, and the dean was on the other line, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm in trouble." Um, but also, how does the dean know my phone number? So it ends up he asked me if I can give a potential student a tour of the university. And then I was thinking, what a nerd. Like, who is this person? Gets the dean to call a student to give a private tour of the university. Sure, I'll do it. So I met Katie at the university, and that was just in preparation of like a big review. And I gave her a tour of the university, but I had stuff all over the school and was talking, I think, purely about my research and my stuff. And I ended up not selling the university, but I did sell myself. So here we are today. Katie
Okay.
went to Cornell.
So from my perspective, okay, first of all, why does the dean have your phone number? You were the total nerd. I was like, okay, so this is going to be, the nerdiest of the students to show me around. She did an awful job of talking about the school, but we talked forever about her work and my research interests. And while I ended up at Cornell, while she finished her degree program at Syracuse, we didn't talk at all until fast forward, we both were done with school and working in Manhattan. And one of us reached out to the other. I was like, oh, we should chat and see what you're up to. And it was like the most infamous like lunch that turned into dinner. It was kind of like a date that just like didn't end. It was going so well. We just talked over French fries and wine. And like within, I don't know, a few days, we're like, oh, let's work on something. Let's collaborate on some projects, some competitions. And that was like the beginning, and we just never
What,
stopped.
when did it really feel like it went from, hey, let's collaborate on some things to, I think we're actually building something here? I'm always curious of that leap of faith moment.
I think it started when I was like, Kat, do you want to just move into my living room? Because we were working on so many things
Yeah.
together. And in Manhattan, like you're living in your tiny shoebox of an apartment. And we were both working for different people at that time. And we were working on a lot of projects because Kat was applying for a green card, which she ended up getting this like extraordinary person's green card based on her body of work. It was a great excuse to like apply and do competitions together and just make stuff. And we just continued to make stuff. And we were spending so much time in Koreatown because that's where the cafes were open the longest. So we'd like work these crazy hours for these like high profile firms. Then we'd go work on our stuff and then sleep a tiny bit. So at one point, I was like, why don't you just rent out your place in Hell's Kitchen and like come move to the Bronx with me, which is a whole other thing. And I was up in the Bronx because I was interested in like, could we do projects in the Bronx and like what's real estate like in the Bronx? And so like my apartment in the Bronx seemed huge compared to anything else. Like it had a living room that we decided would be Kat's bedroom. So we started living together and just doing projects. And eventually we said like this is actually what we should do. This is going great. And I think that's when we said like let's make K Works.
Kat, do you
Yeah.
have a different story? You got a different story on meeting. Is there a different story on starting K-Works as well?
Um, it's funny. Katie actually had phrased this really nicely, I think, and the question was asked a bit differently from maybe it wasn't you. But when did it feel like that, like K-Works was going to be a thing? And Katie and I always had so much fun designing. If it was for competitions or if it was, I don't know, designing the next shoe or the next furniture or whatever we were working on, it wasn't always like pure architecture, but it was always so fun. And it was just, we were feeding one another's idea and bouncing off so much one another. And Katie once said that, once we work together, like I know this is it, and I know we are making something great together. So like as soon as we worked together, it felt like this is going to be it. We're going to be doing this and it's going to be great. And we both are incredibly like curious and like looking out to do different things. So we were always doing so many different things, and it wasn't like purely like architectural. And also in our practice is not just buildings, I would say. So as soon as we met and as soon as we started working together, I feel like it felt like this was going to be it, I guess.
I want to hang on something there. It seems like a part of the secret sauce at K-Works is the collaboration piece, and there's something about it that feels effortless, and there's something about it that makes you go, "Hey, we should rent out my apartment. I should move into your living room. We should spend all night in these coffee shops in Koreatown." There's obviously a mad,
I just want to send a disclaimer because it's illegal to rent
yeah,
out your place in Manhattan. I didn't do this on a short
yeah,
period. I was very
yes,
legal. Just want to put that in
yes,
there.
we will double hammer that home. It was a very legal operation. But what about
We
that?
really rented it.
Can you unpack that a little more? What about that
Yeah.
collaboration? What?
The creation part is so interesting because there's so many ways to do it. And like Kat opened my eyes to like the preciousness of informal communication. Kat got me to loosen up quite a bit, I think, in the way that like I exchange ideas. And it's a funny thing because whether we were living together in the same like space and she was in my living room or she's across the ocean, like it's never felt like we're actually far apart, like to this very day. And I think that informal communication was like the spark that just like kept going. And I think about like all the ways that we exchange ideas and piggyback on things. And like we would use Snapchat all the time to deliver like short updates on what we're working about on. And that became like delightful because it's way better to deliver bad news with like bunny ears and like a weird voiceover. And it just like reminds you that like, okay, it's not the end of the world. Like everything is relative and there's nothing we can do about that particular client or that thing that happened on that project. And it like that levity is like pretty magical. And I just remember like I would get these weird sketches or like Cat like writing on a wall and sending me a picture of something or like a weird markup. And instead of like some formal document and like a perfect drawing, like I remember it being like, what about this idea? I'm at a stoplight, I'm driving, drawing something on my hand, snapping her a picture and being like, what do you think about this? So like a sketch on your hand is just as valuable as something else. So like the way we collaborate is like bouncing off in big ways and small ways. What else do we do that you like about our collaboration, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, I think you totally hit it on the nail. Like the way we communicate, it's so easy and effortless, and um, I we never feel far apart or the different time zones. I mean, right now I think we're 7 hours apart, and it still doesn't feel like we we miss each other. Technically it's almost a full workday apart, but I mean, we are such
K-Works
good.
is always open for
It is
business.
indeed. We work 20.
One of us.
It does help the productivity and the turnaround time of things, I have to say. But yeah, it's really fun to communicate over Snapchat, Instagram. We send each other voice recordings, which I've learned if it's longer than 5 minutes, it is audiobook, or is that what it's called? So we send
That is
audiobooks.
a
Well,
um,
I want to hang on
yeah.
this for a second because I think we're all in creative fields, and I think there's one element of creativity that's romanticized, and it's all big ideas hitting you at these serendipitous times. But I also think creativity is a discipline and requires a lot of structure. And I think a big part of that is communication, whether it's communicating amongst the team of creatives, communicating to clients, right? I mean, creative work is so personal and it's so subjective. And I think this communication piece is essential, right? And I mean, I love that you've opened up all these avenues, right? Hey, I can send you a Snapchat with the bunny ears and the bad news, or I can show you something on my hand. Does this trickle down into the client experience? How do you communicate with clients? Is it that same sort of open lines of communication? Curious how that expresses itself.
Totally.
Yeah, I think we've
I think
learned.
it takes a little bit, but once the clients, I feel like, get to know us, they love just sending us quick informal messages like, "Hey, I'm at a I don't know, garage sale. Look at this, what I like," or "Can this be an inspiration for this grand staircase we're doing?" Or we have a vast amount of group WhatsApp chats with our clients where it just becomes a bit informal. We're all humans, and the way we work and how we think is not always like linear in structure, how you are communicating in emails and on a business level. And I think the creative process is something that is never linear, and I think requires you to communicate a bit freely. So it takes a little bit, but I do think our clients love it. Katie, what do you think?
Yeah, it is like it's not linear, it's pretty bouncy. And I think it took us a little while to embrace the fact that like our clients are human too and they just want to know that we've got their back and to educate them about the process and to say like, okay, let us know if you find something that is inspiring or let us know if you're worried about something and we'll figure out a way to get through it together. Like you're not going to find somebody, an architect or a contractor that's going to cause a project that doesn't make mistakes or have issues. It's that you want somebody that you feel like has your back and is going to work through those issues with you. You want someone that you feel confident is a part of, you're on the same
Totally.
team.
I think that's what's so cool about building businesses right now is you have so many ways to communicate with people, with clients. And to your point, I mean, the work you're doing is so personal. So if you can foster that sort of level of connection through the communication, and then also just given how nonlinear a creative project can be, like if you can just, I don't know, make it a little more informal and create that bounce in there, I just think it's a better yield for everyone. So I think it's so cool how you all communicate, not only with each other, but with your clients. I think it just improves everyone's experience.
I think there's only been one client that we have communicated with Snapchat with, but it does get to Snapchat.
Have you achieved client Snapchat level? Like, have you gotten there? You have to like work
that's
with, yeah.
that's the new barometer. That's the new barometer. Well, there was
Yeah.
another word that I want to circle back to that you all brought up, and I think it's all tied to this communication piece. But um, the curiosity, right? And uh, I don't want to lead the witness here, but you all have told me a really cool story about a project you took on that maybe didn't seem originally befitting for the studio. But how has this idea of curiosity shown up in your business, and what has it opened up for you?
I think
Yeah.
Katie and I always try to learn and grow as a person, and in order to do so, I think it's curiosity is part of who we are and what we do. So if there's an opportunity and um, it is something new and challenging, I think we jump on it. And there are a few projects that definitely have um, offered themselves to us that we took on and were curious about. When we were in Serbia and Austria for a business trip a few, maybe a year ago, and we were just exploring the city, get to know different cultures and like what happens in different areas of the world, obviously. And we love fashion, especially shoes. And we,
And we've been saying
oh, it
like,
was actually one
we've
of
been
our
saying,
tour guides. How do we find them?
we're like, oh, what kind of stuff can we design? And we had just been starting to say like, we should really design shoes. Like that seems like a great fit. We'd been designing furniture. We're like, oh, let's do candles. And like, most of what we do is houses and museums and restaurants and retail and apartment buildings. But like these small things, like I think are just as relevant to design. So like we're used to doing build whole buildings, but Kat is always like, I have an idea. Let's, should we design jewelry? And like that's what made us design a candle. And we have done a lot of art installations. So when we were in Serbia and we'd been just chatting about like we want shoes, our tour guide was the one that had said like, oh, look at these are like custom made, right?
Yeah, they were quite funky. So she told us, it was like, oh, he does, like, he has a store here, but he's not always there. You have to call him in order, like, for him to show up. So we called this guy in our, not really Serbian, but like English, and talking with our hands through the phone. We were able to manage a time where we were meeting him in this store, and I think he was a bit overwhelmed. We were so excited about what we saw in the stores. It's a one man shop, really, and he learned the trade by his grandmother, I think. And Katie and I were
Yeah.
so enthusiastic about everything that he had done. And we were pitching him ideas like, what is if you match this pattern and this pattern and this style and this one? And I think his head almost exploded. So we became really good friends with him, and yeah, started collaborating on a few design ideas, how to make shoes, yeah,
That,
different.
by the way, let the record show the role of tour guides in the K Works story. Kat, you were supposed to be a tour guide for K way back when, and then a Serbian tour guide opened up. So maybe there's some sort
This
of
is
kernel
true.
of truth there. I mean, I love that. So now you're designing shoes for in Serbia. What did that open up for the business? I'd love to hear the actual business impact of taking on that project.
Well, we'll see, I guess. We're still figuring out what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Go
still
ahead,
working
Kat.
on that one. Ask us in a year.
Okay, okay. And going back to how does this manifest with client engagements? How does curiosity show up when you're working on a home or a museum or a retail space?
I think like I had said something to Kat the other day. Like we have so much fun doing this and have realized like on the flip side, what we do feels very serious and we hold ourselves to a very high standard and there's a lot of rigor in trying to put together something that's going to be built,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can have an idea and then you have to make sure it can come to fruition. So this idea that like it can still be fun the entire way through, like has felt really magical for the last several years with Kat. And I said to Kat the other day, I was like, do you think like our magic will ever fade? And Kat was just like, how dare you even question that? We will never let the magic fade. Like because we're always in pursuit of curiosity and it's so easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day of how to run a business, how to make a building, how to like keep clients happy, to make sure bills are being paid. So it's so easy to slip into a regular routine of the mundane. And like if you find a business partner like somebody like Kat, like you can't help but let the like magical kernels always be around you and being influenced by something you see, a film that you watch, like an art show, something totally unrelated potentially. So I think always looking for those opportunities and being willing to just say like, okay, that's weird. Yes, maybe. How would we do that? Or like, why is this worth it? Or maybe it's not for this project, but how could it be? But just being open to those things and not letting yourself get bogged down in the stuff that's it's always going to be tough. Like there's always toughness in running a business. So I think just being open to those ideas and then letting it trickle to the clients to get excited about things, I think we make way better projects, letting ourselves be held to a very high, rigorous standard, and then letting ourselves enjoy the process and just be open to things that have not been explored and like dedicating time, like set aside time to explore things out of curiosity. And so we will say like we're about to hit our 100th project for example, which feels
Congrats.
crazy. And this yeah, we have this like folder in our database that says the 100 house that like once we get to this, let's design something just that
Mm-hmm.
we want to design for the sake of exploring curiosity. Or we have this folder where we keep snippets of just like ideas that like might come into play. But those things are just as important as the rigor and the day to day. You have to like leave room for exploration and
Yeah,
curiosity.
love that.
Yeah, I think that's really well put, and like I think it's important to say, like, in as an architect and a designer in general, every question, every problem that you're being tossed at, it's completely different. So you can never be approached the same way, and I think that is really important for KMI process that 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 it's different. It's not a habit. The process to design a building or a shoe or a candle or furniture is always different, and it has to be I think obviously feeding the end product, and like the more out of the box we can think and the more curious we can be in the design process, I think the product is at the end. And I think our process is it definitely is growing. I think over the past like years, I definitely think it has been growing. But I really love how we work. Like we go back and forth all the time. Like often I think as a designer, as an architect, this at least I was like this in school and even like my first job, I didn't want to show people until like it was pretty fleshed out or at least enough to for other people to get excited about. But when I work with Kay, I love it because I don't have to, and it just can be a snippet, and it will feed into something that like is really exciting for her, and like literally we share one rhino model, and it just grows, and it doesn't have to be fleshed out, and it's really um, an amazing process, and it I think it produces some really intriguing and exciting work.
You're getting me creatively fired up. I'm going to put a little post-it on my laptop that just says Serbian shoe, so I remember to have I thought of everything. But I think that's a trap for so many creatives. Is I've got to hold on to this until it's polished and complete. But
Yeah.
going back to everything we've talked about, if you make it more of a conversation, you're going to get to somewhere a lot richer and more interesting. And I think that's something you all really baked into your process, and the portfolio shows the result of that. I want to, by the way, this is getting me so fired up. So I love this. I, I want to now ask, because we have a lot of people who are just starting or thinking about starting. If you were to sit down with someone who was about to launch their own studio or firm or practice, um, what would you tell them? What advice would you give that person?
I think it will be different every time I'm being asked that question. But one thing that would be a constant, um, I would say, find someone that you love to work with and don't let them go.
Oh, how
uh,
sweet.
Aw, I love you
the
too,
other
Kat.
thing, uh, the other thing I would say, I mean, do your due diligence, like put your hours in and learn from others, and never stop learning. But then also go for it and just do it, and you learn as you go.
Yeah, I think Kat brings up a really good point. Like you can't do it on your own. For a long time, I was trying to build projects and do things on my own. And it was like that preciousness of like, well, I have to have ownership of this and then it has to be perfect and I'll release it to the world. And like Kat said, like the gloriousness is in the progress. It's the messiness. So find people to work with, to collaborate with, like as your business partner or outside of your own business, learn from people, ask people to either mentor you or figure out how to learn and like gather as much in that due diligence process, but then give it back to the world to pay it forward and help share what you've learned with other people, with young folks who want some advice. So like it takes a village, and your work is better the more you can reach out and connect outside of just your own kind of
Yeah,
echo chamber.
that's what I love about this industry. It is the willingness to share, like you all hopping on this call and talking with me. And I love that never stop learning mindset. I mean, that's why I love doing these conversations is I take home like two or three things and apply it to my work. Well, I mean, I love the story, right? Like, I think the movie version, Kay goes to Syracuse and your roommates and all that, but you figured it out. You reconnected in New York, and you worked those long hours, and you took on some unusual projects, but it's opened up so many doors for you all, and it's cool to see the work you all are putting out, and the fact that you can run this sort of remote studio many hours apart is really cool. My last question is, how do people find out more about K-Works?
We have a great Instagram page.
Fair enough.
Instagram is probably the best place. It's kind of funny because we keep saying like, oh, yeah, we've got a website that like is chronically turned off because we're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, we need to like put our projects out there. And maybe it's a good problem to have that we've been busy enough and haven't. But yeah, they can reach out to us at info@kworkstudio.com to learn about us or to see our portfolio or hop on Instagram.
Amazing. Well, congrats to you all. 100 projects. That's really exciting. And I always love chatting because it's both funny and informative. So thank you for taking the time today, and great to see you too.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us,
Michael.
Michael.